You ever thought about using Solumpus to make sure your back doesn't hurt? Because that's me right now. My back is not doing great right now, but it's gonna be fine. I think I just slept a little bit wrong. It just kind of sucked. But anyways, hello everybody. This is That Manga Dude, and welcome to a good old-fashioned FVI, where I talk about one-shots. I talk about the first volumes, and I give you my full review of these, and then I rank them at the end, and to give you an idea of what I've been reading in a little bit more detail than my typical reading log. So this video has 3 cool new series. One of them was one of my most hyped series, which you'll see in just a bit. But really excited to get into this one. There's quite a few things that were coming out. Wasn't able to read all of them, to be honest, but definitely going to be reading them before the end of the month, so that I could have it all ready for that good old-fashioned reading log. But I do have 3 really good series, so we're gonna get started with that first series right now. Let's go. Okay, so this series, originally releasing in April of 2021 in Shogakukan's weekly Big Comic Spirits, is going to be Keiko Shinzo's Hirayasumi. Okay, so let me talk about people who worked on this for the English release. We have ourselves translation from Jan Mitsuko Cash, touch-up art and lettering from Elena Diaz, design from Jimmy Pressler, and editor is Holly Fisher. So let's talk about this cover and spine. Cover, love it. I love it so much. I love the colors. I love the way that it pops. I like the really simple format for the font for the title and for the story and art stuff. The one looks good. Spine is, you know, your typical white black affair, so nothing too crazy. And the back one is a little simple too. But man, I really do love this cover. It's a very, very nice cover. I think it's giving you an idea of what you're getting into, and also not explaining anything at all, which is great. I think that's a really, really good cover. It hooks you in, but doesn't give you enough information so that you know what the whole entire plot is, that's how we like it. Alright, let's get into our characters. So we have 2 characters I'm going to be talking about. We have ourselves Hiroto Ikuta. It's going to be this guy. He is the main lead, the male lead of the series. He's a carefree, somewhat aloof guy who tries to enjoy life one step at a time. I think what makes his character so much fun to just like watch is like how he approaches things, and how he goes to work, how he cooks, how he's like kind of like living his life, but he lives his life in such a very specific way that is a very, very different in comparison to me, and I respect him as a character, and I really, really appreciate how Keiko Shinzo has written his character, because I think he's just such an interesting contrast to his cousin, who is this girl right here, Natsumi. So Natsumi, like I said, Hiroto's cousin, female lead of the series, country girl moving into the big city for the first time, and she's going to art college. She's struggling with feeling like she's fish out of water, feels like she's too country for like these people from the city, feels very much like she can't fit in, and feels like nervous to share about her, like what she wants to do, what she's looking at, or like what she enjoys. So her character's struggling with a lot, and I really, really like her character in contrast, like I said, to Hirota specifically, just because they're on completely different wavelengths, but they tend to have a really nice connection throughout this volume, and I don't know, I just really like their characters quite a bit. So, let's talk about the story really quick. The story is nothing too crazy, but I think it really, really works for this kind of story. We have ourselves, so like I said, Hiroto is a pretty laid-back guy. He is 29 years old, I think, at the time of the present time. He ends up meeting this older lady who's kind of like a grouch, but is actually just really kind and really nice, and will feed him every once in a while. They've quickly become close friends, but after she passes away, he actually inherits her home. So he begins living in that home, and is kind of trying to cope with losing that friend in his life, and so he's trying to figure all that stuff out. Meanwhile, Natsumi is now going to be moving in with him because her art college is in Tokyo, and now they're living together, and it's about like their struggles in life, with Hiroto struggling with the loss of the grandma, and Natsumi struggling with fitting in a new big city. So, like I mentioned, with a lot with the character stuff, because they kind of go hand in hand in the story. But the story, while not like kind of completely blow you away or anything, I think the way that it's told, the way the narrative is written, the way that the characters are described and given a chance to grow even within the first volume is fantastic. I really like where the trajectory for these characters. I'm really happy that Natsumi grows pretty fast, but still sticks to who she is as a character, which is awesome. Overall, really enjoying the story, even if it is simple. It doesn't have to be crazy. I think there is a interesting thought from a lot of people that, oh, a story has to be complex for it to be good, but no, maybe sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes it really just needs to be straightforward, and it can be carried by the characters and art. So story does it great, characters are awesome. Now let's talk about the art. So I usually talk about art in a pretty standard way, usually like, oh, it's fantastic, or I like this a lot. But specifically with Hirayasumi, it's weird because I had like the specific couple of words for it, and I wrote down that the art is really light and airy, and it's not usually the way I would describe manga. Like I said, usually I kind of try to keep it like objective, where it's like, oh, the paneling's good, this is the kind of stuff. But I think the way that Keigo Shinzo draws characters, draws the backgrounds, feels really effortless, and I feel like the best way to explain that is when characters are in side profile. You can see that like he gets rid of some of the lines, so like it's just kind of like the character's profile, and he uses the negative and positive space really well. This is a great example of this. See how the lines don't connect between here, and it gets filled in by the light, by the page, and I think that's just really, really smart. The line weight is really important. The line mileage is also like interesting to look at. It's a really, really just light read. I think overall the art helps with that so much. There's something about it that's just like nice, makes it flow really well. The paneling's pretty great. There's some really great double spreads throughout this first volume. Love the character designs as well. There's a lot of great character designs and a lot of great outfits as well. I think like it's just a really good example of like this like kind of lazy but kind of like aloof and kind of just does whatever 28-year-old and a girl who's like trying to fit in but also like push herself out there as an 18-year-old. So seeing that within their outfits is also great. So overall, Hirayasumi is fantastic. It's just as good as everyone mentioned it to be. I am really, really excited to keep reading this series as we keep getting new volumes. And yeah, volume 1 was awesome. Okay, so the second volume that I decided to read and I'm going to be doing a review of, first released in April of 2022 in Kodansha's Besatsu Friend, and that is going to be Rumi Ichinohei's I See Your Face Turned Away. And wow, the lighting is making this look way bluer than it actually is. But first, let's talk about who worked on it really quick. So first we have translator is Irene Nakano, letterer is Dietrich Premier, editor is Maggie Lay, managing editor is Grace Chen, and production manager is Angela Zurlo. Alright, let's talk about this good old-fashioned cover and spine. This has a really nice cover. I actually really like this cover a lot. Even if it is a little bit simple, I think the art just looks really good. It really helps to pop. Really love the watercolor style. It's a really, really pretty cover. I will say, I'm not sure if I like the white behind the font for the title, but I know why. It's because it would be almost unreadable if it didn't have it, but yeah, it's just a little nitpick. Spine is fine. It's just white, so nothing too crazy here. And then we get another really pretty illustration on the back, so that's also cool to see. Okay, let's talk about our characters. So I'm going to be talking about the two main characters that are that have storylines in this specific volume, because I'm going to talk about it during the story about why that is. But first, let's talk about Hikari. So Hikari is going to be the girl here in the front. She's one of the female leads of the story, and the first character we follow in the story itself. She's a French horn player who sees herself as being completely average. Her grades are average, her looks are average, and stuff like that. And she's really good friends with this other girl who shows up in the story and is always kind of wishing for her to be like, oh, be happy and be whatever. And she doesn't typically think about herself too much. So as her character is going throughout the story, she starts to see that, like, sometimes you do need to do things for yourself. And I really love that for her. I like her character a lot, actually. She's really easy to sympathize with and empathize with, and I'm just rooting for her happiness. I think I think she can go places. And then Otani is going to be one of the guys here in the back. Otani, he's the main lead of the story, not to be mistaken for Shohei Otani. Sorry, I just had to make that joke. I like baseball. But he's the second character we follow in the story. Like I said, he's very caring and kind guy. He gets very bashful whenever he's like around this girl that he really likes, which is super funny. and he appreciates it whenever people help him, and overall, he's just a really refreshing character to see. I think like he really respects boundaries of the characters in the story, which, not to say that it's rare, but it's really cool to see it just done so effortlessly within the story itself. Sometimes it feels like it's something that characters need to learn, which is, you know, that's understandable, but I think it's really cool that a character is like that right off the bat. So really awesome. I really like the characters in this. The character dynamics are really good as well. Now let's talk about the story. So like I mentioned, the story is going to be following, it's going to be a little bit interesting to say the least, but basically it follows four friends, or eventual friends that is, as they are like hanging out and spending time at high school, and as their relationships and friendships kind of coincide with one another and kind of form and merge and stuff like that. So what's really interesting about the way that the story is told though is that we actually start with, like I said, we start with Hikari, and then towards the end of the volume we actually jump to a different perspective. We jump to Otani's perspective. So from what I can tell, it looks like we're going to be jumping from each of the main leads, which is super cool. There are four of them, who are all these four characters on the back. So it's just really cool to see this kind of like storytelling, and it's done pretty well actually. I think it's really easy to keep track of what's going on. I really like that we're not jumping from different timelines. The timeline keeps going as we're switching perspectives. So like after the first part is over, it's basically the next day, and now we're in Otani's perspective. So it's really cool. I actually really like it. I think it's really interesting, and just a fun little way to tell a story. I don't think we get it too often where we get a lot of different characters' perspectives, or if we do, we usually get it where the timeline kind of resets. So it's like, oh, what was this guy doing during the 6 months that blah 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 was going on? So it's really neat to see it like in real time. So overall, I love the story. I think it's great. And the art, it's really, really pretty. Really strong character designs and beautifully phonic paneling. Helps to make it a really easy read. I noticed that as I was reading it, like, very simple. I love, like, a lot of, like, the posing and stuff like that. Like I said, I love a lot of the paneling. There's a lot of really interesting and nice, simple paneling that helps you flow across the pages really easily, which you don't normally see. At least like this well. I think it flows extremely well, which it makes it such an easy read, and yeah. So overall, I love this. This was a really good first volume again. Yeah, I was not expecting this one either. This one was completely off of my radar. I actually just picked it up because I was like, oh, I saw somebody on Twitter who had posted about it, and I was like, that looks really good. I'll give it a shot, and I am glad that I did because it's really good. Alright, coming into our last volume, we have ourselves a series that started in February of 2019 in the magazine Harta, and that is going to be Friday at the Atelier from Sakura Hamada. So yeah, let's talk about who worked on this really quick. We have ourselves translation from Matthew Alberts and lettering from Alexis Eckerman. And yeah, in terms of the spine and the cover, this is probably my favorite out of the three covers actually. I just really like the colors, I like how it all pops. I love the gold that they use for behind the title, which is awesome. It transfers over to the spine as well, which is super cool. And then the back also has those colors as well. So really, really pretty, and probably my favorite cover out of the three that I've talked about already. Now, let's talk about our characters. We only have two of them that are worth talking about, basically. So we have Emiko Tamaki. She's the female lead of the story. She's kind of always tired and always looking for her next meal, which is like the running gag in the series is that she's always just hungry, so she'll kind of just do whatever for food. Yeah, she doesn't have a lot going, at least from what I was reading. I didn't really connect with her character too much. I thought she was fine, but nothing too crazy. And then coming into the artist, which is this guy, Shunsuri Ishihara. He is the main lead of the story, or the male lead, excuse me. He's a famous artist who suddenly finds his muse in Emiko. He's very stubborn, he's very cocky. He's just kind of a weird, eccentric fella, to be honest. And once again, not like my favorite character. I thought he was okay. I just think he's a little bit like annoying, to be completely honest. And yeah, don't know if I like their dynamic either. Like their dynamic is kind of strange and just a little, it's just weird. But I kind of feel like that's like the entire story really. So the story, like I mentioned, kind of, one day while walking home, Emiko helps a man who has fallen over and dropped his fish, and he's like, oh my goodness, you're the perfect woman that I needed. Would you like to be nude for my drawing? And she agrees and accepts. It's, yeah, it's a strange premise. It's very odd, and the story, I don't know how I feel about it. I think the story is okay. It's decent. I think, like, Some of the things that happen is just really odd, and I think that's like is what's supposed to be funny. But I don't know, I just really wasn't laughing that much. So I think like the story and writing is good, but I just think that it's let down by the characters. I think like the characters are just not necessarily likable or very kind of one note at this time. We'll see if that changes as we go into the next volume, but as for now, it wasn't a very good first impression. And that also goes for the art as well, actually. I think I wrote here that the art is hit and miss for me. Some of the character designs are solid, and there's actually some pretty good backgrounds as well. I can't flash through this because there's actually some naked characters, but the paneling leaves a lot to be desired. I think sometimes it can be kind of difficult to read, or it's just very simple. It's nothing super crazy at all, and I think it's really bogged down by a lack of really interesting facial expressions. I think a lot of the characters kind of have the same face all the time, where it's like, oh, this character feels happy, this character feels worried, and they kind of just look the same. And it's like not necessarily the most interesting to look at, which is a kind of a shame. So all in all, as you can see, it wasn't my favorite first volume. It actually might be my least favorite that I've ever done for this. Is it a bad series? No, I don't think so. I think it has some merits here and there, but I don't know if I could technically suggest this one for anybody. So I don't know. It is what it is. Alright, coming into the last part, I think it's pretty obvious how I'm going to rank these, or at least how I'm going to rank at least one of them. So Friday at the Atelier is definitely going to be last. Like I mentioned, it's lacking in some areas for me, and it's just not my favorite thing. And I think I'm going to stick with this, actually. I think this is a pretty good setup. Hirayasumi at number 1, and I See Your Face Turned Away at number 2. And I think the only reason why is that, like, Hirayasumi just hit me a little bit different, but it is a very, very close one for these two. I really liked both of them a lot. I thought they were really, really good, and for completely different reasons. So I love it when I do like this part because it's just so funny. It's like trying to rank completely different things, like apples, oranges, and bananas. It's like, well, I mean, it just comes down to bias at this point. So Hirayasumi gets my number 1 for May. So that's going to be it for this video. Are you interested in reading any of these, or have you read any of these? Let me know in the comments below how you feel about them, or if you're feeling like wanting to pick up some of these. I'd love to know if you guys are reading these, because yeah, it's always fun to know what people are reading these days. And you know what to do. You can like, you can comment, you can subscribe, and you can also join my membership if you want to get these videos a little early, just like Regs C. Lee. Thank you so much for supporting me and being a member for 3 months now. So thank you so much. You're awesome. And yeah, that's gonna be it for this video. Thanks for watching. And if you didn't do any of those things like I mentioned before, thanks for watching like 15 minutes of a dude talking with his hands and talking about manga. Really appreciate it. You guys are awesome. Have a wonderful day, and I'll see you in the next video. Bye bye.